to order our Bedford Board of Education work session on April 21st, 2022. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Boynton?
Here.
Mrs. Birch?
Here.
Mr. Ledford? Here. Mr. Akins? Here. Mrs. Macklin?
Here. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? We welcome all of you to our meeting this evening. Let's have a full house on a work session, great. We're going to move right along with the meeting and the superintendent's report, which is item number 2 on the agenda. Superintendent.
Good evening, Board President, Vice President, and Board members. I thank you for this opportunity. This evening I have 3 exhibits under 2.01, 2.02, and 2.03. I think we're going to hold off on 2.03. So under 2.01 is with great honor and pleasure that I recommend to you Ms. Felicia Lewis to serve as the next principal of Bedford High School. Ms. Lewis. Yeah. People aren't happy, as you can tell. Ms. Lewis is a graduate of Bedford High School, has served as the assistant principal, and just is a very dedicated and passionate educator for our students. Under 2.02, we recommend to you our district nurse, Ms. Tara Meyer. She did have a sudden emergency, so she's not able to be here tonight, but she will come to the next meeting so that she could be recognized.
All right. Could I have a motion to approve the administrative contract of Ms. Felicia Lewis, please?
I move to approve the contract for Ms. Felicia Lewis.
I second. I guess you're in. It has been moved by Ms. Birch and second by Ms. Macklin. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mrs. Birch?
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin?
Here, yes.
Mr. Akins?
Yes.
Mr. Ledford?
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton?
Yes. Motion passed 5-0.
At this time, I know, Ms. Lewis, you have some events that you got to get to before your children are, so I appreciate you coming before us tonight, but we would allow you this opportunity if there's anything that you would like to say, as well as recognize those that are here to support you.
Absolutely. Do I need to go to the, can I say it? You know I have a big mouth, so I didn't know if I needed to.
You speak so softly.
I think I got that from you. Good evening to everybody. I just wanted to say, thank you so much to the Board of Education. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for giving me this opportunity. My heart is beating so fast and I don't know why, because this is what I do. I am truly passionate. I don't want to have tears, but this is, excuse me, because I'm not doing that. Thank you. Anyone who knows me knows that I truly bleed green and white. I always have. I still remember when I was able to come on board as an assistant principal, and it was like, you coming home, like LeBron James, like I'm coming home. I am truly home. I hope I'm home forever. I have had the opportunity to work aside a lot of my colleagues that are here today. I have learned so much from everybody in this room. I remember when I first came into the building, I walked the building my first year with Mr. Walters, and he actually said, like, you know what, I can see you being the first black female here at the high school head principal. And I said, nope, next, not me, you know. And so it's truly surreal to sit here and be here in front of you all today. I'm so passionate. I'm so passionate, and I want to do so much for our students. I want to thank my mom, who's here today. I come from a family of educators. My mom is a retired teacher of 30 plus years. My father has passed away, but my father is Clarence Lewis, who retired teacher, teacher's coach, you know, worked at the REACH program. Like, I am bred to do this. Like, this is what we do. I would like to thank, this is my man, my baby, and he, stand up, babe. Everybody knows that's Dre, that's Bay, like that I talk about. So yes, he's here. This is my brother, Rondell Reed. He is also in education. He's an educator, social worker. And my friend Sharice over there. Hi, Sharice. And thank you again to all my colleagues, Mr. and Mrs. Parrish. I don't know if you know these people right here. This is like second mom and dad, and they have all boys, and they know that I'm their daughter. I say that all the time. They remember me. And so I've always been their daughter. They're in the community. This is my community, and I'm here, and it is time. And I just want to again say thank you, Dr. Johnson, for believing in me. You've been riding with me for a long time. You know, there's some things that we work on with me, and I love you, and thank you. So thank you to everybody that is here. Mr. Thompson, thank you. I worked alongside of Mr. Thompson for the past 3 years as an AP, and he's definitely put me in positions where I needed to lead, to grow me to who I am right now. And so just thank you to the community. Thank you to my team of APs that ride with me, my team of security, my team, I mean, we're riding, it's time. So thank you. Oh, I forgot to recognize my son. With mommy, and he knows that mommy has late nights now, and he is trying to grab hold of why I'm still working, because that's not how it was, but he's been pretty good, right? Okay.
Well, thank you, Ms. Lewis, and we know that you're going to do a good job because you have been in the interim position for a while, and you have been an AP at the high school. We're so proud of you. I'm especially proud of you. Felicia actually was classmates of my 2 children, Christopher and Crystal, and I remember those long legs on the track and all that good stuff too. So you know what, I'm so proud of you and so glad that you did come home, and I know you'll do well and you have a great supporting staff. So happy for you.
Anybody else want to say anything?
I just want to say I am so proud to see my fellow classmate, basketball too, represent 20 years later, and she's gone from being a student to walking in the halls to now leading the halls. So I am proud of you. We lift you up and support you, and just grateful that you are home and you are taking the reins. So go Bearcats.
Just my time at just watching how you've taken on this role and you've ran with it. You have a very strong control over these students at the high school, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you looking out for them and wanting them to be better. I want the school to be better. And I always love the fact of seeing a fellow alumnus come back. So just thanks for all you do, and I look forward to our future.
Kalisha.
I've been knowing you a long, long time. And I'm not gonna tell you. I'll say that for another day. I just want to say thank you for everything you're doing. You've come a long way. There were days when I would see your father, he'd say, I was sitting at home and I told Ro, listen to Sharon up there yelling at Kalisha. And I used to say, Louis, you can't hear me yelling from your house. He said, yes, I can. And 9 times out of 10, I might have been yelling at you with some of your friends, because you guys really gave me a run for my money, but you made me a better person. And I'm so happy for you. Just keep doing what you're doing and make your mom proud and your dad proud, and you'll go a long way, sweetie.
Congratulations to you. I'm looking forward to meeting you and learning more about you. And I can relate to what you said about your family and feeling like this is what you bred to do. I have a similar story with my family as well, so it seems like you have everyone's confidence, so I can join with that and looking forward to seeing you thrive and excel and do great.
All righty, well, thank you. All right, I would like to have a motion to approve our district nurse, Ms. Tara Meyer.
Motion to approve the district nurse.
Second.
It has been moved by Ms. Birch and second by Mr. Lifford. Any discussion? Comment? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mrs. Birch,
Yes.
Mr. Lifford,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton.
Yes, motion passed 5-0. All right, next on our agenda is awards presentation and communication. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have Ms. Willis come before us to provide us with the textbook presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Good evening, members of the board, members of cabinet. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to share with you the textbook recommendations for implementation in the fall. It is tonight a small presentation. I just have 3 textbooks that I'll be sharing with you, so we will be short and sweet, I promise that. I have been in the Friday notes, been trying to give you an overview of the process, so hopefully you've been keeping up with the information that I've been providing, but just let me give you, again, kind of another quick little once-over of how we get to the point that we are this evening. So this process is really rooted in the department chairs, well, because this evening these are high school, these are secondary, so my instructional specialists, who are the department chairs, really carry a lot of the load behind this process, because they are indeed the experts when it comes to looking at the content within the textbooks. And so I first of all want to start by tipping my hat to Sophia Firum, who is the instructional specialist for the World Language Department, and you will see some Spanish books this evening, and to Tricia Menson, who is the instructional specialist for the math department, and I have 2 math textbooks tonight. So they put in a lot of work to pull all of this together. They make sure that the department members are pulling their load, and I certainly appreciate the assistance that they give me. So we begin this process in the fall of the year that we will be adopting. I start by meeting with the instructional specialists, and we take some time to look at the recent research in the fields around which we are adopting. So if there are some new strategies, there's a new approach, there's new legislation related to any of these content areas, I make sure that I share that information with them at that time. We talk about, we look at the data, we look at how our students are currently doing in these classes. We try to determine where they might need some additional help so that we can adopt materials that will provide those supports and resources for them as needed. And we take a look at the standards to make sure that there's nothing changed in the standards, whether those are state standards or national standards, or standards put out by an organization such as College Board, which you will see here this evening. We make sure, again, that we are aware of all of those current standards so that, again, our materials will align. From that discussion, then the department chairs have that same kind of discussion. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that we also talk about what we like about what we currently have and what we don't like, so we can kind of establish sort of a wish list. These are the gaps we see, and we're hoping to find this in new materials. So I have that discussion with them, then they replicate that discussion with their department's members at a department meeting. And in this case, these materials are specific targeted students because they're electives, and so not all teachers are necessarily involved in this. It might just be those teachers who are teaching the particular courses that are up for adoption. So they have that discussion with their departments, and from there, we then reach out to publishers to have them deliver and share with us preview materials. So I have a couple of requirements for them. You know, I first of all tell them that we must look at least 3. That's our good faith effort, that we're looking at 3 different options. And we're also looking for current material. So I tell them, don't bring me anything that is older than 3 years. And even 3 years is kind of a stretch sometimes, right? And so those actually, and I wrote about this in my notes, were some challenges this year. We found that publishers are not producing written material, new editions. They were very hard to find for the math courses. And I did write a little bit in my notes about 2 adoptions that I'm actually pushing to next year. We also had slated for this year AP Stats and Calculus, but both of those courses have new editions from the publishing companies coming out next year. And so we decided to delay those adoptions for 1 year. And we looked at some things that were already out there for those 2 courses and just were not satisfied with what we saw. And so we're finding that companies are not producing materials as regularly as usual, and they also are not as responsive this year. Many times, you know, we get tons of materials delivered to us for preview. They were very, very stingy with what they shared with us this year. We had to make a lot of calls and do a lot of begging to get access to some additional materials so that multiple teachers could be looking at things, and we could send materials home with students so that families could look at them, etc. So we did run up against some challenges this year that are new to me in my 17-year career here. So from that point on then, the teachers take some time to speak with representatives. They have presentations. A lot of it was virtual. They do a lot of Google Meets, Zoom Meets, whatever, to find out more about the materials from the publishers. And then the teachers have some discussion about what they like and what they don't like. We have a rubric. I've shared the rubric with you. Several criteria. It's multifaceted, but I listed a couple on the screen here that seem to be the things that come down to helping us make the decisions. These are just the ones that stand out. So the teachers review the materials. They fill out rubrics. Again, as I mentioned, we have student input on this. Very important to us. And easy to get at the high school, right? They're very happy to help us with this kind of activity. And we involve parents. So either we have teachers that send materials home to parents through their students. And this year we actually hosted right here in the board office a parent evening where all of the materials were on display. Teachers were here to answer questions. Parents could get into the online platforms and preview the digital side of these materials as well. And then they had rubrics, questionnaires, very short questionnaires that they filled out for us to give us some input as well. From there, the teachers convened to try to come to some kind of consensus. And this evening, you see on the screen the staff who was involved in this year. And as I said, small, right? Small but mighty. So these are our world language teachers and teachers who are teaching the upper level math classes for the textbooks that you saw this evening. Again, hats off to them. They are involved in this process throughout the course of the year. You just heard me talk for 5 minutes about what they're doing. It's time intensive. They're not paid for doing this. They stay after school because they recognize the importance of this decision, and they do recognize that they truly are the experts, and that we are all really depending on them to be present and participatory in this kind of an activity. So as I said, these are all for the high school with one little caveat that I will get to later in my presentation. I want to make sure I do take some notes on my PowerPoint, so I don't want to leave anything out. All right, so I'm going to start with pre-calculus. This actually the pre-calculus and the AP calculus, which you're seeing tonight so that I don't repeat myself, are by the same company. This is Cengage Publishing. For those of you who have been around for a while, you know that we have many, many Cengage materials. We find the company easy to work with. We find the materials durable. And of course, our students respond well to these materials. So we were very happy that Cengage, again, had some materials that we could use. We are currently using a pre-calculus Cengage textbook. And so the book that I'm bringing you tonight actually is just the revision of that. As we looked at multiple different pre-calculus books, we settled on the edition that we have, so it's an updated version. And there are quite the updates to the version. The digital platform, and I did write down some stuff because I didn't want to forget. The digital platform, to me, it's amazing to me what they're able to do with the digital platform. But when the books go on display, you will see in both the pre-calculus book and the AP calculus book all kinds of QR codes all over the place. And those QR codes take the kids out to online tutors, takes them out to chats that they can have with tutors who are there to chat with them as well, takes them to video explanations. So in a district where we are emphasizing universal design, for a student whose teacher demo maybe didn't do the trick, these materials, both the pre-calc and the AP calc, have these video representations of solutions. There's the written representation, and then there's the teacher presentation as well, and sample problems, right? And side-by-side problems, which is kind of cool, right? So the book will show them a problem that is perhaps done incorrectly and ask them to think about where the mistake is, and then they go to an answer key kind of video, and they can actually see how that problem should have been solved and compare that to their own thought process. So it's really fascinating to me what we're able to do with this modern day technology. But also on these digital platforms, this companion website is loaded with additional resources for students and teachers. There is in the AP version of this textbook, there is a test prep manual. It's called Fast Track to a 5. You may recall that we have purchased those materials as supplementals in the past, but with these materials, those test prep books are coming with this subscription for our students. In addition, there is a lot, in especially this pre-calculus book, there's a lot of embedded literacy, and I'll talk a little bit about the AP Calc book as well, but you know that we have a huge literacy initiative in the district. And so this book, you'll see on almost every page, there's a lot of vocabulary work for students. There's a lot of opportunity for students to be writing about their thinking, to be explaining their solutions, so setting them up to really think and act like a mathematician, not just understand how to use a formula to get to an answer. There is also in this pre-calculus, which I love, lots of opportunity embedded in each of the lessons for students to get some prerequisite practice. So we talk about that all the time, right? We don't have time to go back and teach. You have an entire course to teach in pre-calculus. You can't go back and teach algebra. So in this textbook, for those students that need the additional algebra just refresher, there are embedded within every lesson, there are algebra refresher tips and problems for students to solve so that the teachers can differentiate. So again, very impressed with what Cengage has come out with in this 2022 version of the book. And the other thing we take a look at is the alignment to the next course, right? So does this pre-calculus material really cover what they need to be successful in calculus and in AP Calc for the student who would jump from pre-calc to AP? And this book covers the breadth of the content that the teachers are deeming is absolutely necessary and prioritized for students to be successful at the next level. And the other thing, I don't want to forget the note-taking, talking about the literacy. There's also a note-taking guide, which is kind of odd in a math book, but again, we love the embedded literacy, so it has the students in each lesson. They have a notebook. It takes them through some sentence starters, some scaffolds, so that they're doing some note-taking. They're kind of regurgitating, what did you learn on this page? What do you need to remember? What are your vocabulary words? So it's kind of a guided note-taking book for them that they would then be able to use to study. And it's great preparation for students who are going into the AP track, because they'll have to do all of that kind of stuff on an AP test. And so the AP Calculus book, which I talked a lot about already, right, is same author. Oh yeah, and I didn't say that. The author is Ron Larson, who's a professor at the Penn State University, and we've had Ron Larson books before, and again, find him to be very student-friendly. So the literacy part of the AP Calc book is pretty interesting. They have really embedded the mathematical practices into this AP Calculus book because the College Board course framework has changed and has really started to embed literacy. And the way you embed literacy in the math classroom is through those math practices, through having kids communicate, through having kids write, reason, justify. Those are all of the literacy skills that they're doing in a math classroom. And those mathematical practices run throughout this book. And so it really fits nicely with the work that we've been doing at the secondary level as far as embedding literacy. Lots of real world applications in both of these books. I saw Costco problems, Walmart, the NFL, amusement parks, I don't even remember. But again, the question we get from children, right, a lot of times at these levels is, why am I learning this? Why do we have to do this? And so having problems that really illustrate for them and show them how this work applies to their everyday life is very, very important to us when we're looking at textbooks. And so both of these books do that very well. So now let me move you on to the last book that I have to present to you this evening, and it's actually 3, potentially 4 books, right? So it's for our Spanish courses, And next year, we'll just be offering Spanish 1, 2, and 3, but should we offer a Spanish 4, which we have in the past, we would then be using this book in Spanish 4 as well. The title of the book is Encuentros, and we had a great time. We had a great time looking at Spanish textbooks this year. Again, find them very colorful, very intriguing, very full of lots of culture and a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approach to the language. This particular book was a hands-down favorite with parents and students. Ironically, in our very small world language department, we were kind of it wasn't unanimous, right? Sometimes when I have a small adoption and just a few teachers, I get consensus right away and we move on. We didn't really have that in the world language department. They were kind of split. The books were similar, and I'll talk about how we landed on this one. But then when the parents and students, I mean, it was unanimous pretty much. This was the book that they preferred, and so the teacher said, let's go with it. You know, we like it too, and they just sold us on it. So this is the book that we chose. It's organized by Spanish-speaking regions of the world, and so, you know, there's a section in the book that's rooted in the culture of Guatemala, and then there's some, well, that is Central America. Then there's some South American countries. Then there's the Spanish-speaking cultures in our country. And so that's how students are getting exposure to the cultures through that kind of worldly approach. And that's how the book is segmented. And then the really interesting thing, I think why parents and students like this book is that it's set up like Survivor. So they meet at the beginning of the book. They meet 4 teams of characters, and they are cartoon characters. Well, they have real photos, but then throughout the book, they become cartoon characters. And we're following those characters through challenges in each chapter in each of the countries that they go to. And it has the appearance of a graphic novel. And so, it looks like something kids like to read, right? Because it looks very simplistic, easy to read. It looks like it's a little bit animated with the word bubbles, and they're used to all of that kind of stuff. And so I think the visual appeal of the book is what attracted parents and students to it. The teachers, of course, looked at the material, and what we look at in a world language book really is the content of this book something that we can cover in the course of our year-long class. And sometimes we find that textbooks at this level in a world language are written more for a college level and cover way more material than we can. This book will be uber appropriate for our students. And we had to make sure with this book, right, that we were choosing a book that would be applicable to 8th graders as well as seniors. I could potentially have a senior who enters into Spanish 1, while at Heskett I have students in 8th grade in Spanish 1. And so we wanted to make sure that we chose a textbook that would meet the needs of the wide range of students. It's a really fantastic online platform because it forces kids to communicate. It allows kids to chat with one another. It allows them to video with one another through the platform itself, and the teacher can monitor all that work. There's some computer graded work on the platform for teachers as well, so the teachers can go in and get some immediate feedback about how kids did and figure out what that instruction needs to look like for the next day. So we were very impressed with the online platform. And then finally, this book is loaded with what's called IPAs, which stand for interpersonal performance assessments, and that is the direction that the ODE is pushing us when it comes to assessing world language students. It's a 3-level task, and kids are performing, right? They're speaking, which is, again, why we love this program, because the program forces them to speak and to write and sets them up really well for these IPAs. Teachers were writing IPAs. I had somebody come and train them a couple of years ago. We were producing all of our own, and now we don't need to do that because this textbook comes with all of those assessments ready to go. So, I think that's it on the 3 books that I have for you this evening. The costs are estimated up there for you. Those could fluctuate a little bit there, depending on the projected enrollment when it comes time to cut the actual purchase order, but we're at about $65,000, which I'm sure Mr. Parkinson would tell you is a pretty low textbook adoption. Again, because we don't have a ton of students enrolled in all of these classes, and so the necessity for lots and lots of textbooks is just not there. Timeline, I'm here this evening. Tomorrow the books will be on display here in the board office, as they always are. They're on display for 2 weeks. Then you will all convene on May 5th. Hopefully you will support the recommendations that the teachers and I are bringing to you this evening, so that once we get your approval, I can put purchase orders on the books. The materials would be ordered and likely will arrive before teachers leave in June. And then what teachers will do is get the training on the textbooks over the summer and make any changes to their curriculum frameworks through the summer studies, which will be coming to you probably about that time, about May 5th. So you'll see summer studies for these on the books so that teachers can prepare for these materials. So that work is, of course, much easier done if the books are actually in their hands. So it would be great if we could get approval in early May to ensure that arrival. So with that, I thank you again for allowing me to be here this evening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Ms. Willis. Board, do we have any questions?
Just a couple. You said that there was some parent input.
Yes.
How was that advertised to parents, and about how many parents did you have that were there and present to give some feedback?
Yeah, so it's a great question, right? And I wish I could tell you that we had more parents. We had about 10 who came here to the board office. But as I said, we also sent books home to parents as well. That number, I don't know. I can get you that number. I didn't ask teachers how many went out. We tried several avenues to invite parents, and I feel like we gave them fair notice, a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So they got emails from teachers. It was posted in teachers' Google Classrooms, and Mrs. Lewis put it on her robocalls, her Sunday evening robocalls. And so we tried 2 or 3 different avenues to get parents involved.
Okay. And I understand that these are high school courses. Was any of it kind of directed to middle school parents, as they will be coming up to the high school?
Yeah, no, we didn't do that, but that's a good thought. Yeah, no, we did not do that.
Thank you for answering that.
Sure.
That direction. My other focus was, I know you talked about the digital links to have access. Are those actually in the books themselves, or is there a digital app or something that the students now have access to their Chromebooks that kind of tether?
So it's actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, let you finish.
It's cool.
It's actually both. Like I said, I was amazed this time at really how developed the technology faction of all these textbooks are. So as I said, in the 2 math books, there's QR codes. And when you look at the books tomorrow, you'll see a QR code on almost every page. And then that QR code takes them out to either a practice problem or a video tutorial or an additional resource that they can use. But there's also an online platform, and the textbook is also online. So we're getting kids textbooks, but they can also access the entire textbook through their Chromebook as well. Yeah, it's pretty thorough. They've done a great job.
Digitally inclusive as well.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
One thing that caught my attention with the pre-calculus and AP calculus was that you said they offer real-life examples.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's a hard thing to do in higher-end math courses, is to kind of show how does that apply to regular life. So I like that those things are touched on with these new books. In terms of the Spanish books, this is the first time we're using this publisher for the Spanish?
It is, and I should have looked that up before I came this evening. I feel like they're a newer publisher, but I don't know that for sure. Maybe I should have said that. But I don't recall looking at materials from them before. But interestingly enough, with the world language, 3 of the books that we looked at were produced by Vista. We looked at 4, and 3 of them were from Vista.
Okay.
But we have not purchased from them before.
Okay. Do you know how the age of the previous Spanish books are? Like, how old are those?
I do, but I don't have it with me. I can get that to you. Textbooks are generally, this is general, so the Spanish book may not be this, but they're generally about 6 years old or 7. Some books, like science, I try to put on a more regular, I try to get them in more quickly if I can, because that content changes so much. And sometimes, like with an upper level math, the math is the math, right? So when we purchase a new textbook, what really changes is the technology piece that goes with it and the visual presentation. But generally, they're about 6 to 7 years old when we are replacing them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the presentation and all the information was shared. This is a maybe random question. What do we do with the old textbook?
So old textbooks, so that I don't allow teachers to pack anything up until the new materials have arrived. But once they arrive, then again, the department chairs will box those books up, and we sell them back through Follett, and we get credits in the curriculum some of the money that I need to pay is usurped through the credits instead. So I might have $10,000 in credit, and that might say $65,000, but I might really only pay $55,000.
Sorry, I did have another question. As it pertains to, and I know they're newer, and I actually was here looking up both companies. And I know the Spanish is just culturally anyway, but have we also taken a look to make sure that there's still cultural responsiveness and relevance in all the books, even when it pertains to those real life scenarios? Are they also scenarios that are thought through different lenses?
Yeah, actually, again, I've been trying to write a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing around culturally auditing our materials. So we are looking for things like, and I'm looking at our rubric that we're working with our consultant on, right? So we're looking at characters in the book. Do they represent a variety of books? And authors of the books, do they represent a variety of groups? So, you know, Middle Eastern, Asian Pacific, African American, Latina, Native American, multicultural, people with disabilities. We're auditing our materials for those things. And then we're looking for representation, thinking about how those people are represented in the curriculum. Are minorities and these marginalized populations being presented in a positive light? Are they taking on the role of the protagonist? Are they, you know, the heroic person? Are they the leader? Making sure that they're being shed in a positive light and not a negative light. Our rubric also speaks to making sure that we're looking at different races, genders, abilities. Again, not painting a negative picture. Presenting different points of views for children so that they can make up their own minds and do some critical thinking on their own about where they fall relative to the diversity. Yeah, and then at the end, you know, one of the things that we've talked a lot about is our curriculum and do our resources help kids to think about how they can make a difference in the world based on what they're learning about the multicultural. So encouraging kids to take some kind of action. So our teachers are going through that kind of audit. We have started this work at Heskett, and again, we will branch that out. And I think next week we're going to have the students looking through our English materials and answering some of those same questions. So we're going to get some student input. So in answer to your question, that's a long answer, but I think we're getting way better at that than we used to be.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I just have a couple of questions, and I want to for you to reference the data again. What did that data look like, number one, and what was the sources of the data that you collected? And in making that change, well, first let me hear about the data.
So in our AP course, we're looking at the AP scores, quite honestly. That's what we're looking at. And we're not seeing, as you all know, we're not seeing a lot of 4s and 5s. We're not even seeing a lot of 3s. I mean, total transparency. And so when we're looking at materials, we're looking for materials, as I mentioned, that are going to help kids fill gaps without having to take up a ton of instructional time. Because there's so much pressure in an AP class to cover the curriculum that is prescribed for us. We don't have the authority to say, oh, we don't have time to get to that, we're not going to teach that this time. We can make those decisions with some of our state-defined curriculum. We can identify priorities. We don't quite have that luxury in an AP class because the curriculum is set for us. We're teaching what College Board gives us, and the test is covering all of the material in the course. And so we're looking for materials that, in this case, we were looking for materials that will try to fill some of those skill gaps for kids coming into calculus who maybe are not as algebra strong as we want them to be. We have a very broad acceptance policy for AP. We don't have prerequisites on our courses. Kids don't need to have a certain GPA to get into an AP course. I worked very closely with AP teachers a few years ago to encourage them to open up that gate, right? Kids who want to take a rigorous course should be able to access that course. And our job as teachers should be to figure out how to scaffold them up in that course as much as we possibly can. Saying to a child, you have a D average in math, therefore you can't take AP calculus, to me is not equitable. And so College Board agrees with that, and our teachers agree with it. So one of the things we looked for there was those materials that were going to provide kids with those scaffolds. And so that the teachers weren't trying to create all of that stuff and also teach the AP course. This book does that for us. There are a lot of scaffolds in there for students. In the pre-calculus class, we're looking at grades. We generally have really good grades in our pre-calculus class. We don't have a lot of failure there. Our kids do well. We have some strong teachers in the math class, and so I think that's kind of why we landed on the same edition of the textbook we have. We felt like the data was showing that the book we have was successful with kids and teachers, and so we purchased we're requesting to be able to purchase the revised edition. And in the Spanish classes, again, we're looking at grades. We're looking a little bit at their results on those IPAs, but again, grades in our world language classes are not great. Our students oftentimes struggle in a world language class like Spanish, where there's a lot of speaking, and it's really based in our English grammar, right? So if kids don't have a strong English background, sometimes they struggle in a world language. And so that's why we chose this kind of a book, because what the world language teachers will tell you is that kids get frustrated, right? And so then we kind of lose them because they feel a little bit overwhelmed with the course and not so successful. And so we were looking for materials that would keep kids engaged in the course, to help the teachers with keeping kids in the course and wanting to continue in that course. And so that graphic novel approach and kind of the cartoony look and all of the plethora of activities that they can do technologically wise with that Spanish book is what we're hoping will provide our students with an additional engagement factor and that persistence with the course.
Okay, my next question is, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You said there would be training during the summer,
Yes,
paid training?
yes,
for
oh
the
yes,
employees.
it's a summer study, so they
And so
be-
will it be ongoing? What kind of progress monitoring are you doing during the school year? Since it is new, it's kind of interesting that you're going with the same publisher, I guess. That's what I was wondering about what the data looked like, if the data was not looking good and we're going back to the same company. So very curious about that.
Mhm.
And so is this PD ongoing that they will have?
The PD is, yes, so they'll come and get this first, it's kind of a crazy day the first time. I mean, you're a teacher yourself, and sometimes you get a new book, there's a million things going on, you have an hour and a half with the rep, and you're like, "Rah," when it's over. And so in fact, the World Language Department, we've already talked to those publishers to see what the training really entails, but they'll get multiple hours in the summer. We're actually hoping for somewhere between 3, maybe 6 hours in the summer. So the contract includes several hours of PD. The first one we'll do in the summer, and then those additional hours will intersperse throughout the year. Most of the textbook companies do not offer that embedded coaching with the materials, but I would be trying to, find that kind of assistance for teachers outside of the textbook reps. But the reps will come back 2 or 3 times during the year in addition to the summer kickoff.
My last question, thank you. My last question was, did you check any other district to see if they were using any of these books that we're publishing? And did we even look at the success of those books in those schools?
So the only book that I think we did that for was the AP Calculus book. I think I had that on the slide. The teachers are in an AP network, and so we how you can put out on the announcement board, what books is everybody using for? So this AP Calculus book that we used is, again, I put it on the slide, it is the most popular book, and I did verify with College Board. We have a regional rep, so I verified with the rep that it was the most highly used book.
You said it was on the slide?
Yes, I think it's
I just wonder, what schools were those? I'm just curious.
I don't know the schools because it's an online AP network, and so they're doing this, through an online discussion board. That's the information that they're getting. But I was just on a call this morning where we were sharing textbooks, but it wasn't any of these. It wasn't AP Calc or Pre-Calc. But we often do that through First Ring. We share what books are you using, what series are you using. I did not do that for these.
And sometimes I just wonder if we just kind of stick with the same schools that look like us. I would like to see schools that don't look like us and see the success there. That's all. That's what I was wondering. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Oh, do we have any more questions? All righty. Next thing, it said it's the end of our meeting. I would like to have a motion to go into executive session.
Motion to move into executive session. enter executive session to discuss the employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee. And to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees.
A second, please.
Second.
It has been moved by Ms. Birch and second by, Mr. Lifford. Sorry, Mr. Lifford. Do you have any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Birch,
Yes.
Mr. Lifford,
Yes.
Mr. Akins,
Yes.
Mrs. Macklin,
Yes.
Mrs. Boynton.
Yes. Motion passed 5-0. All right.
Yes, the only thing I would like you to say, before we go in is, BEA, members did vote and they did pass the, negotiated agreement.
Great, thank you. Thank you, awesome. Good job, thank you so much. And
No, thank you, and I just also want to just thank, the members of the Bedford Education Association for their collaboration, in our ability to, move forward as a district, as a team, so thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, thank you, everyone. We will be going into executive session at 5:46. We thank you for coming out, and we look forward to seeing you at our regular board meeting.